President Muhammadu Buhari has promised to resist any attempt to undermine the development of sports in the country, declaring that football is the #1 sport in Nigeria and it remains a national asset. The president made the pledge while receiving the 10-year football development master plan presented to him by the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, at the State House. He directed the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development and the Nigerian Football Federation, the NFF, to commence implementation of the 2-volume report in phases. The plan seeks to build the capacity for sustainable youth development program, promote efficient club administration, and improve stakeholder engagement with members of the football community, including referees, players' union, coaches association, supporters, investors, local and international partnerships, as well as collaborations.
Football is our #1 sport in Nigeria. It is our passion and a major tool for our unity, and so as a government it is our responsibility to safeguard it and treat it as a national asset. This government is interested in developing a football culture that will accommodate football best practices and that will help the nation to lay a solid foundation for her domestic football. In the past years, Nigeria's football development has gradually stunted due to the neglect of the core orientation of football administration. The governance structure around Nigeria's domestic league is weak and standards are conveniently compromised. I am glad these issues and many more have been addressed in the Football Master Plan. I charge the Nigerian Football Federation to salvage our domestic league at all levels.
Our football teams have struggled to make progress at competitions. Therefore, Mr. President, it must be said, though, that Nigeria has recorded a measure of success to some extent on the international scene. Such successes cannot be attributed to any deliberate or sustainable plan or structural efficiencies, but rather to the passion, determination, and commitment of the players and the handlers of the team. The master plan recommends the expansion of the constituent for the NFF elected Congress and executive board to make it meet new realities and needs. It therefore recommended an increase of the executive board to 111, 111, and 16 respectively, among other far-reaching recommendations. Mr. President, with your approval, this document will be presented to the Federal Executive Council for approval on future funding so that the implementation of the short, medium, and long-term plans can commence as part of the legacies of this administration.
Minister of Youth and Sports there, Sunday Dare, and before him was the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari. Well, joining us now to take a look at the 10-year football master plan as a media professional and member of the 16-man committee, Ikedi Isuguzo. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight.
Good evening.
For a lot of Nigerians, this is laudable. It's a 10-year plan. We've never had anything like this before, but should we be celebrating? What does this seek to achieve, really?
Well, a bit of correction. We've had plans, some 10 years or so. The Vision 2020.
For sports?
There was a sports bit there also. There has also been programs targeted at sports over some span, but the difference is that we didn't get this far in terms of promises of implementation. That's just the difference.
Promises?
Yeah, it's promises, because until we start seeing the implementation. But listening to how the president spoke, if he recognizes football as an asset and a national asset, then we have to protect it. And that's what this plan essentially is about: how to protect football, how to expand governance of football, how to make football more inclusive, because it has also become a problem. People are excluded by those who get in. So increasingly the door is shutting and fewer new ideas are coming into football.
Right, and that's quite troubling, especially looking at, the fact that government is still involved a lot in football, unlike what we're seeing in even smaller countries. We're even seeing Nigerians go to invest in football in countries like Kenya, in their leagues is what I'm referring to now. But looking at this master plan, I see something there that says promoting efficient club administration, and one wonders really, club administration, some say it's because of the government's involvement. That's why we're not seeing as much investment from the private sector in our football. So how does this intend to change that and ensure that there's more funds from the private sector to help promote football in Nigeria?
Okay, that's why we're talking of governance. We want to see a situation where there is enough confidence in the system for people to invest. And that system will also identify possible areas of investment. Because as we are now, people just basically go to people and say, give me money for football. So we'll be asking, is it to develop facilities, which you could develop, own, lease it to a football team and use it for other things? Is it to develop football from the grassroots, youth football, women's football? So we want to have a situation where governance is properly stated. You have people who come in there, and the public, the investing public, stakeholders have confidence in them. Nigerians who invest elsewhere is where they have confidence. Essentially, football is a business also. So if you want your money to make profit, you will go where you are confident that money will be spent for that purpose.
So we understand that this committee looked into 15 different areas.
Yes.
And it's supposed to help close funding gaps.
Yes.
And the declining fortunes of football in Nigeria. But some will ask, is it really a problem of funding or a problem of accountability and transparency? Today we heard the sports minister say that over 15 billion naira has been received by the Federation in the last 7 years from the Buhari administration. So what really is our problem? Funding?
No, you see, sometimes when we throw up figures, they sound very big. 15 billion is 2-point-something billion.
Dollars.
No, it's naira. How much do we earn from oil? You spend 15 billion on football. It's naira. So it's about 2-point-something. If you look at the number of national...
When you say 2-point-something, I want to clear that because the minister says 15 billion.
It's 15 now. So if you divide it by 7 years, over 7 years, it
so
becomes
per
2
year
point
is what you're
yes.
saying. I want to clarify
yes.
that.
So we have a number of teams, women's team, men's team, and so on. And most times, if they travel or involved in competitions, you pay them allowances in dollars. But this is not an excuse for how the money is managed. But I'm just saying, if it's thrown up as 15-point-something billion, it sounds like a lot of money. Really, it isn't. But we still need to have a situation where this money is so properly managed, everybody knows how it is managed, that even if that figure is thrown up, you'll be one of those saying, no, we spend this much on this, we spend that much on that. We don't have it. There's also the issue of funding gap you talked about, in the sense that there are areas that are not being funded. Women's football, for example, youth development, youth leagues, they're not funded. Beach football, which sometimes we get to the semi-finals or become runner-up in the world. We don't have a beach league. When FIFA started the World Indoor in 1987, we were one of the countries invited. We don't play it up till now. So all those areas are not funded. And might be where the funding gap is. That is one. Secondly, you also have to manage your funds according to your resources. For example, I don't support some of the allowances paid players if we can't afford them. You don't go into debt paying for some money. If all we can afford is $5,000 instead of 10, pay. Those who want to play, we play. The other ones, let them go away. But they will not go away because playing for the national team is part of the requirements for them to continue getting work permits where they
absolutely.
So they won't go away. But we're just interested in spending money sometimes that we don't even have.
Right. So we should prioritize even the money that we get.
Yes, that's where the gap. There are gaps, but it's also more of how the money is
absolutely used. One key area which I really like, and you've touched on a little bit, but I want you to expand on, is sustainable youth development. Well, it's part of the phase 1 of the 10-year plan, which was submitted to the president. But my question is, I remember growing up here, the competitions we have inter-house sports and even grassroots sports, where we found most of our greatest assets beyond football, sportsmen and women. Most of those things don't exist anymore. So how does this plan intend to help us go back to the drawing board and get the right talents from even when they're really young?
Catching them young.
Those things exist. but they have just become ceremonies. You know, you are told buy uniforms, people march and so on. They are there, but they are ceremonies. What we intend to, what the plan suggests is that we create enough playing grounds, spaces, coaches available, balls. You know, balls are not even available, such that anybody who wants to play football will have access to some facility under which you can play football. You know, the people are there, but there is no program to harness them. There's no program to support them with things as simple as balls. We don't have balls. We don't manufacture them, we import them. You know, so things like that are all in the plan. So what we suggested is that football goes right down to the grass and the roots and so on. Communities will be playing, primary schools, secondary schools. So we build, we drew up a football pyramid that we will build from the base. What we are doing currently, we are building it from the roof. We invest a lot of money on the Super Eagles and so on, but that's at the finishing end. So we want to start from the base, have a huge involvement of people and talent, so you can filter them up to the top. So at the end, there's a huge participation in sports, so which can then draw up a lot of things. Some people don't end up being footballers, but all those activities, you have coaching, refereeing, and so many other things.
So many to pick
Great.
from. Really.
So it's not an inverted pyramid.
No, it's not. What we are doing is inverted pyramid now, and it must collapse.
Okay.
It's like a Ponzi scheme.
Eventually, it comes down. It comes crumbling.
I mean, 15 areas. We've talked about funding, development of sports, young.
Yes.
What other areas are
The other areas are infrastructure. The other areas are also training, you know, human capacity building. Then we talked of the league. We also looked at that governance is even a big area on its own. We looked at constitution of the boards. We look at the constitution and the board all the way down to the grassroots, you know, local football councils. We looked at areas like professional football. Okay. We looked at youth education and football. We looked at sponsorships. We looked at licensing of clubs. You know, because the issue you mentioned about state governments is once government is involved, government comes in, they say this government is there, and then they bring a lot of politics into it. But if the licensing regime is strong, you just find out your club doesn't meet it, and you go out of it. You know, so all those are there. Then the national teams, women's football, of course.
Well, for everything you're still talking about government involvement, is there a long-term plan to get governments to hands off football in the country?
No,
quickly?
Government should not hands off football. It's Nigeria Football Federation. Right. So there is Nigeria's football. But we want to see a lot of government investment in infrastructure, human capacity building. And whereas then we look for sponsors and partners to do a couple of other things. Is there
anything about rewarding our heroes? Because that's another problem we have.
Welfare of athletes, incentives and all that. Welfare even on a longer term to look at things like insurance policies and so on, retirement plans and all that, which will be built into their playing
Let's
careers.
hope this goes beyond promises of implementation this time
10-year master plan.
It has to go beyond that. But you see what has happened. There are people who call themselves stakeholders in football. And if they are stakeholders, they should love this game enough to know that they need the game to survive. We have an issue now of a parasite or parasites expecting that they can live outside the body they are in. If they kill the body, they go too. Government has done this much. What is left is for those stakeholders to do all the things they have to do, including some of them losing some powers so that football grows. What we've done in the past is that so much emphasis has been laid on who leads football than football itself. Yes. So that once the person turns up, he leads. But what this report has done now is to emphasize the importance of football. Okay. The primacy of football starting from the base. And anybody then who is not going to do that should not be fit to lead.
Well, we hope and pray that you know, this will not just be a huge book that we just dump somewhere in the long run.
We have to do more than
we have to say thank you so much.
I
said we hope. We are hoping. You are part of the committee. We're looking forward to you implementing this. Of course, Ikeji Isuguzo there is a media professional and a member of the 16-man committee that they
16 persons actually. There was a woman there.
Oh, yes. 16. A man. You know, in the media, we're all men here at the end of the day. Thank you for coming.